Left channel has noise now. Right channel's clean. Guys, we found it. Okay, so we swapped those two those two transistors, and the noise moved from the right channel to the left channel, and now the right channel is okay. Okay, so now we know that that guy right there, which was in slot 18, is bad. Okay, so that resistor, let's try it one more time. That transistor, find my schematic. All right, that was 18. This guy right here was the problem. Okay, so 18 is a 2SB346. So I need a replacement for that. Now it just so happened that I had ordered, when I thought 20 was the problem, a replacement for 2SB175B. All right, these germanium transistors, I believe, are pretty much the same. They have different numbers here, but they're not super high frequency. These are not like the ones you'd have in a radio section. These are audio section guys that have lower frequencies. So when I got the replacement for this, I ended up with a NTE 158, and I believe that's the same as what you use for 18 as well. I'll double check that, but otherwise I think what I'll do is pop that in. So that bad one is now up here in 17. So I'll take this and install it in 17 and see if that doesn't fix it all. And I do have another one of these. I have two of these. So if that works, I may change out 18 as well, so both of these are NTE 158s, so that if there's any difference between that and original equipment, at least both the channels will be the same. So we'll see. Let me do that, and we'll see how that sounds. So this goes into slot 17. Okay, you see I've got 2, 3, and 1 engaged here. So we'll see which one's which. Okay, base is 3, the collector is 1, and the emitter is 2. Alright, so let's see if that makes sense. The emitter is 2. Try it again. Okay, so the emitter is 2, base is 3, and collector is 1. Yep, that's the same way we had it on the other one. I'm going to make a mark on the collector side, and the base is in the middle. So I'm thinking that the collector is in slot 1. Correct. So mark it. Okay, so that's, barely see it. There's the collector, and then emitters in the middle, and sorry, the base is in the middle, and the emitters on the far side. All right, let's get her in. Okay, let's get this NTE component in. So here it is right here. I've made a slightly more serious red mark there on the collector, if you can see it. This thing doesn't focus with a darn. There it is, collector. All right. So we're going to take out the one that's now in spot 17 and replace it. So let's get that fella out. Okay. Out. I think this is our bad actor right here, guys. Okay, so we're going to take the red sleeve off of this one for the collector, and we'll put it onto this one. And we'll take the blue off of the emitter. Alright, so if that's the base, And this is the emitter. Like so. Right? Yeah. That's the collector, and that was the emitter. Collector. And wait a minute. Collector emitter base. Yeah, I think these are backwards. It was like that. It was like that. That's the collector. And the base needs to be here. I want to double check it one more time on the tester. Okay, 1 is the collector. That's correct. 2 is the base. Right. Let me see. 3 is the emitter. So let me, yep, we got the blue. Got the blue one on that. Alright, so I know you can't see that. 2 is the base. Red is 1, that's the collector, and 3 is blue, and that is the emitter. Okay, so I believe I'm going to have to move the base to the other side of the body because it doesn't want to go in that way. Yeah, I'm going to have to move the base over. So the base is going to come through like this. I'm going to put something on that to protect it. Okay, yellow is going to be base. Let's see what I'm doing here. Because it's moving past those other legs. There. It wants to be like that. Alright, so I had to swap B to be on the other side. Yeah, that's what it needs. There we go. I'm not going to cut them real short, just in case, right? It's fun though, pretty quiet. 8-track, it's quiet. So now I'm going to switch to 8-track. Quiet. Phono. Getting some hum. Probably got a floating ground somewhere. Anyway. All right, let's try our Wish You Were Here. No noise. No noise. All right, guys. We found the problem. There's this guy right here. And I don't know that I have a problem with the way this sounds. I don't know if I need to replace both of them or not. Let me play it again and see if there's any problem. I don't think so. I think it sounds great. I'm going to go ahead and probably go ahead and switch that other one out as well, so that they as a pair are matching. I can't hear it as I'm listening to it here, but maybe it'll be audible in the right setting. So I'm going to go ahead and just change it while I'm out so they're matched set across there. I have another one here. So I'll get that one in, and then we'll see how she does. Another one is here. Yeah, I'll switch the base to the other side. I'm doing this so I don't accidentally have one of the the legs short out against each other, since they're moving right past each other in there. Right. So, correct. Wait a minute. Now how does that happen? Collector should be 1. Emitter is in 2, and base is in 3. That's correct. How is that backwards from that? It should be like this. We're going to double check that again. It looks like these two transistors are different. That didn't make any sense. Okay, collector is red, and that's 1. Emitter is blue, and that's 2, and the base is yellow, and that's 3. Well, I don't know how to understand that. Got that in the middle position, which is a 3. That's correct. The base is blue, emitter is 2, and that's blue, and the collector is 1, and that's red. Well, that's correct. I don't know why it seems to be different than the other transistor. I'm going to put it in. let's give it another test.
What are you listening to?
Well, this is just some new music.
New music?
Hey, buzz music. What?
Who is he?
New buzz music. It's all the crazy you need. New music on 94.5 The Buzz.
This 8-track. Volume's all the way up. No noise on either channel. Guys, I think we fixed it. Let's get this all buttoned back up, and we'll see how she does. Just removing that excess flux, and there's a lot of flux on the board anyway. So I'm just using some isopropyl alcohol to remove all that flux that I used. I'm just kind of cleaning up a bit more of it that's there. Okay, I'll put the rest of this together, this and the back panel, and then we'll get this thing set up in the other room and we'll see how it's coming together. Okay guys, so we got it all put back together again, brought it back into the house so we can see how it sounds compared to what it did before. All right, if you remember, what I had was noise in the right channel, and I think what I did is turn it on in 8-track mode, and there's just no noise there. And in phono mode as well, there's just a slight amount of hiss you can hear, which is pretty much what you expect for something. But not gonna ever have it hardly turned up that loud. Anyway, so it looks like we got it taken care of. Let's see how we do on FM.
Which I appreciate you choosing to come.
So he's on air from 93.7 The Beat. If you haven't downloaded the...
I don't love you like I used to.
One more thing that I might be able to address is the radio side of this. So we put this back on the radio. You'll notice that the stereo light does not come on. So I don't know if that's because I don't have a good enough signal. I'm out kind of in a rural area. Maybe I don't have a good enough signal to get a stereo signal here. I get pretty good reception.
Valid 715.3.
So I'm thinking about checking to see if maybe that light bulb is just burned out. And the AM reception is pretty bad. So I don't know if it's got a problem with the antenna on the AM side or what. So I may look into that again. If it's a while before he's back into town to pick this up, I might use that opportunity to look back in and see if I can find out what's up with that. So I got this all set up, and I've got my signal tracer set up over here. All right. And I'm about to start looking for where the source of the problems are. Okay, so the first thing I did was I switched it over to AM to start chasing the noise on the AM. So we'll take a look at that.
Block the lower court's ruling and will allow the CDC to implement its phased-in safety protocols on
3-minute chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach from AARP. You'll get
Michael Irvin thinks that if you're not
Barely moved, Dad.
Thanks, sweetie.
So originally when I plugged this in, it would start making that crashing noise. And so I got set up and started chasing it through the circuitry with the circuit tracer. And it got me back actually to the ferrite antenna, the connections that go to the ferrite antenna. So that made me go to the oscillator circuit actually, because it was on that side of the antenna. And so it looked like there's an oscillator transistor there, a 2SB920, and then there's like a 0.01 ceramic cap that goes to ground, which is located right here. And the transistor itself is located down inside. There's like a little white puck that's just right on the circuit board. It's really small. And then right next to it, that's the local oscillator coil that you adjust. Anyway, so I went around moving around components to try to see if anything was loose, and I did not find anything. So I turned it off and waited for a while. Came back on, turned it on, and it didn't make any of the sound, any of the crashing sound. It played, but then in like 20 seconds it started making the crashing again, the staticky and the crashing. So I got to thinking maybe a component's getting hot. So I took some freeze spray and sprayed it on that capacitor and the transistor, and it seemed like to me initially it made a difference, but you know, it would immediately go back to what it was doing. I also went in and sprayed out the plates of the tuning condenser, just make sure there wasn't dust in there on the AM sides of the tuning gang. It didn't seem to make any difference. So I just left it playing, and it stopped making the noise. So I don't know if the component has just kind of got over its problem. I don't know. But now that it's gone, I can't find it. I could go in there and replace things. I've ordered another transistor that's not a direct change out. It's an NTE equivalent. I think it's a NTE 228, which is an oscillator. So I have this for a couple of days longer, and I'll see when that comes in if it's gone back to making the noise, and then if so, then I'll change it out. But otherwise, right now, I don't know whether something's wrong, right or wrong. So, as you can see.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I'm saying. It was a leftist project. I didn't say that wrong.
So the AM
probably be 31.
seems to be working fine.
So there's
Yeah, I understand. I know.
I mean, I might hook up my signal generator to it and maybe just double check the IFs to make sure it's okay. But I'm tending to just say leave it alone. You know, something else could start going wrong on something this age. So those tuning cans are in here. I'll see. If I end up changing the transistor, I'll probably need to. Otherwise, I think I'm just going to leave it alone. It's receiving pretty well.
Tonight. Right. So that doesn't do us any good. He'll snap out of that.
Okay, so the next thing is, so I started looking at the light for the stereo coming on. So it's a grain of wheat bulb. I pulled it out and chased the leads on it up to here. So I pulled the bulb out, chased the leads up in here, and got set up to where I can measure voltages and so forth, so I can find out what kind of voltages go into it and whether or not the voltage changed as I tuned it. And it did. It went from like 2 volts up to 9 volts or so. So it's probably a 12 volt bulb. But miraculously, when I did that and I tuned it, switched to FM, and can you see?
The spot?
So it fixed itself. So the bulb came on in my fingers as I picked it up. The light came on, and I thought, okay, well then I've got a bad connection. And so I flicked it. I moved all the wires. I looked wherever the wires went through the metal bit of the chassis to see if it had been worried through, and I couldn't find anything. And I tugged. I tried to make it fail. I couldn't make it go off. So here you go. I mean, it's seems like it's fixed itself. And I know that happens, so apparently it happened here. I'm not in a hurry to get this back to my brother. I'm going to let it sit here and operate for several days and see if it comes back. But otherwise, you know, it seems to work pretty well. We know the phono works okay. And before, when I was doing the cassette tape for the 8-track adapter, I went to a surplus electronics store today to look for those components that I mentioned earlier. And they happen to have an 8-track. Seals and Crofts Greatest Hits. So I figured let's just see what we got. Now the foam pads in here are gone. So if I try to bring this tape back, I'll need to go in there and get some new pads and drop them in there. I may do that for my brother without him knowing about it. But anyway, or I'll buy him the foam and let him do it. Because I think you got to poke a hole right here, and I'll let him do that. So anyway, let's see how 8-track does, right? Go to volume up. Okay. That's advancing. Anyway, so some of that crosstalk and hiss we had is because the tape doesn't have the foam holding it up against the playback head, so that'll fix that. So anyway, guys, I'm just going to let it sit here on the bench and let it run and see if the problem with the AM comes back, and see if the problem with the stereo reception light goes back bad again. But otherwise, I guess this thing just needs to be used. Okay, it's been over 3 weeks. I've had this thing running full time. I've had it off for long periods of time. This will be a cold start.
Fox Sports Radio's Odd Couple.
First time.
Guys mix.
No noise. Okay, let's get this thing back together. I want to lubricate the 8-track mechanism, and then there's a couple other things I want to tell you about when I get this thing put back together. I'll do it real fast. Okay guys, we got this all put back together again. As you saw, we did the cleaning and lubrication of the mechanism for the 8-track. Also did some repair work on some of the wires that were part of the speaker lines that had been twisted together but never soldered, and one of them came loose basically when I was working on it. So got that all put back together, soldered it, made those connections like they needed to be, and so forth. Went through and also lubricated up the tuning system, just make sure that we had a fresh set of oil on the pulleys and so forth. It all looked really, really good. The other thing that I did is I went through and verified the alignment on the radio side. It was just fine. I was tempted to try to see if moving the transformer coils would make any difference, and they were all right where they needed to be, so I just left it alone. It was just the reception of it is really, really good. I'm even picking up stations in San Antonio that are like 220 miles away, in the evening. So I mean, I'm real happy with the way this thing receives. Okay, so one of the other things that I've done, and I did this off camera, but I did video it. If I can find the video clip, I'll put it up later if I ever get around to editing it, and if enough people are interested in it. But one of the things I did is that I repaired this 8-track tape that we talked about. If you remember, what I was talking about is the foam that's inside of here that holds the tape up against the playback heads. Okay, that foam that's in there, what it looks like is this. Now I bought some more foam from Kate's Track Shack, and this is what there's a couple of different designs. Some of them have like little leaf springs that hold the pads up. This is the kind that this cassette wanted, this 8-track wanted. So it looks like this when it's new, and it's got a white plastic backing on it. It's spongy, and it has a thin, it has a slick anti-friction film on here that's adhered to the surface so that the tape goes across it smoothly. What happens with this over time is that foam disintegrates. So this was what was inside of there. The foam had disintegrated entirely, and all we had left in there was this piece of plastic. So what I did is that I popped open the case, which of course broke a couple of pins in here that probably hold it together. But I popped this open, and I got it to open about like so. Went in there with tweezers and pulled this out. It was behind this piece of tape. Pulled it out, and then went in and installed this one. That little split goes on either side of a little plate, I guess you'd say, that's in there behind that surface. And then put it back together again and just use some tape to hold it back together, and it seems to work pretty good. So I thought maybe what we'd do is look at it and compare it to how it did before the foam was replaced. So let me turn this back on.
Devoted to trucking safety. Register online.
As you know, the phono still works just fine. We didn't really need to do anything with it. The phono and the cartridge is just fine. Let's go to the 8-track. I think it was track 2 that was causing us the grief. So let's just try this out now.
Of our longing, we're here.
So that plays a lot better than it did before. So that worked out pretty good. Like I say, if I get around to doing the video, if I didn't lose the clip somewhere, I'll post it up somewhere eventually if anybody's really interested. Okay, so another thing that I did do is these transistors that we found was the problem with this. The main problem with the stereo was a noisy volume pot, which is kind of typical. And but we went through and had this really terrible sound noise in the right channel as we went through. You see now I've got it turned up. There's no noise in right or left in the 8-track, and that used to be the worst. So when we used the signal tracer, it was kind of nice to be able to use the tracer to come down to where we were narrowing it down to where we thought there might be a problem component. And what was kind of convenient is that since this was in the audio section, we had a left and a right that was identical. So I had a ready-made substitution to try for a suspected component so I could swap them to see if that made the problem move. If you remember, when I thought the problem was transistor 20, I swapped it with transistor 19 and the problem did not change. So when I got to 18, I was able to swap it to 17 and it did move. So that showed us that 18 was the problem, okay? But what if I was in a part of the radio that wasn't, where I had a mirror circuit, like a left and a right channel, such as in the radio section or the power supply section or something like that. Then if I had a one or two suspected components, I would be left with having to substitute them to see if that made a difference, like I did with that resistor. Now it'd be nice if that was a convenient thing that you had, like another resistor, but what if this was a transistor you had to order, okay? It'd be nice if you could test it, but even if you didn't have a way to swap. So I have another piece of test equipment that I didn't show in this video, but I made another video to demonstrate for you how this piece of equipment could be used to just take a transistor and test it. And let me get it up here on the table and I'll talk to you about it briefly. Okay, this is a Sencore Super Cricket, and what I did was I made a video using this, and what I'll do is I'll put it up in the when I get it put up on the page, I'll put a tag up here in the upper right hand corner to link to it whenever it gets put up there. But so what I did was I made a video demonstrating how this works using these very two transistors. And this thing is pretty cool. You can use it to test transistors in circuit, okay? And it will do a test to verify whether the transistor is okay. But there are additional tests that it can run out of circuit. And that was what was really necessary to see what the issue was. So what I did was I ran the operations of this on these two transistors and showed the difference of how 17 behaved and how 18 behaved. And you might find that pretty interesting, because then, if I only had a 17, one component like number 18 and not a 17 to be able to swap it with, I could use this to see if it not only passed a test in circuit, I could take it out and do some out of circuit tests. And I'll leave it for you to check out the video to see what this would have shown you at the time. Okay. So I'll get that up, eventually if I get a chance to get it up there. And like I say, the 8-track might be able to do that as well. All right, so anyway, I'm finally done with this. This has been a really, really interesting project. I enjoy doing circuit tracing type diagnoses, especially if something like this. It's a real challenge. I think this is a really cool unit. It's from 1971. This was bought by my dad and has been put up in the attic decades ago. And I believe that it got put up in the attic because of that germanium transistor noise that we had. But my brother brought it back down. I hadn't seen it in a long time. It's great to get this thing back working in great condition, and it's brought back a lot of great memories. And as you can see, it really actually performs really, really good. The radio is outstanding on this, and the turntable sounds really good, and surprisingly the 8-track works. So anyway, there you go. I hope you really enjoyed this as much as I did. Hey brother, come on down and come pick this up. I'm ready for you to take it, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks everybody. Bye.